Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. In today's video I'm going to show you how to do this fabulous double moss knit stitch. I'm going to turn my little sampler into coasters. This pattern is very flexible and you can make this into almost any size you want. You can see that it's a nice textured fabric once you get it knitted up. It's reversible, so it's the same on the front and the back, and I like these for coasters or washcloths, things like that, because you get a little bit of stretch, but it's a really nice piece of fabric. So for this project you will need a pair of knitting needles, and my knitting needles are a size 9. I'm also going to be using some of this sugar and cream cotton yarn, and of course scissors and a yarn needle to weave in the ends. This is a 4-row repeat. Rows 1 and 2 are the same, and rows 3 and 4 are the same. So once you get into this pattern, you'll find that it does move fairly quickly. To start, you want a foundation cast on row of any even number. So figure out sort of how long you want or how wide you want your little project to be. For my coaster, this is about 4 inches wide at the bottom, and that was 16 stitches for my cast on row. So I'm going to leave just a little bit of a tail, maybe about 12 inches, 18 inches or so, just to make sure I don't run out of that as I cast on. And I'm going to cast on 16 again because I'm making coasters and I want them all to be relatively the same size. But you can cast on as many as you need for your width or length, as long as it is an even number. Once you have an even number of stitches onto your needle, I'm going to put that needle into my left hand, grab my right-handed needle, and we're going to start row 1. Rows 1 and 2 are exactly the same as each other. Again, this is a 4-row repeat. Rows 1 and 2 are the same, rows 3 and 4 are the same. For rows 1 and 2, we're going to start with a knit stitch. So to knit, we want to go in from the front into the back. Like that. We're going to pick up our working yarn, wrap it from behind around that needle, push our needle through, and that loop that's up here, we want to pull that loop through. So I'll show you again. You want to go in from the front to the back, wrap, push that needle and bring that loop onto your right-handed needle, and then you can slide that part off the left-handed needle like that. Okay, so that's a knit stitch. This pattern we're going to knit and then we're going to purl. So to purl, we want the yarn in the front, so you kind of yarn it over that right-handed needle so it's in the front, and we're going to take that right-handed needle and go into the next loop on our needle from the back to the front, and we're going to wrap coming around this way for a purl, and then pull that loop off like that. So rows 1 and 2, we want to knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl all the way across. So since I just purled a stitch, I'm going to knit a stitch. So I want to bring my yarn to the back again and go in from the front to the back, wrap, pull that through and off. Next one is a purl, so I'm going to move my yarn to the front, go in from the back, wrap, and pull that off. Knit stitch, do the same thing, go in from the front, wrap, and pull that loop onto the other hook. Purl, we want the yarn in the front. You're just going to do this all the way across, knitting and purling every other stitch. I have one stitch left to work. It's a purl stitch. Wrap that yarn around and pull it off. So now you've got row 1 done. We're going to flip our needles. Make sure when you flip that your yarn is on the right side. So right here you can see there's that little bar loop. Sometimes when you flip it, it gets turned to the front and you can see that it creates almost 2 loops, which can be confusing. So make sure you let your yarn fall where it naturally wants to fall and not twist it forward. Row 2, same thing. We're going to knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl all the way across. Remember on the purl stitches to bring your working yarn to the front so you can wrap it around that front needle. And you're just going to knit, purl every other stitch. You just basically want to knit 1, purl 1, which is the pattern, all the way across on rows 1 and 2. Row 2 done. I'm going to flip my needles, and now we can start row 3. For row 3 we're going to do the exact opposite. We're going to start with a purl, then we're going to knit, purl, knit, purl, knit. So rows 3 and 4 is a purl knit. So you can leave your yarn at the back when you're starting the purl. So rows 3 and 4, you'll just bring it up from the back. So kind of awkward having to hold all your needles and your yarn if you're not used to knitting, and even if you are used to knitting. So there's my purl stitch, and now I want to bring that yarn to the back and knit the next stitch. Yarn to the front and purl. So it's just the same 2 stitches, we're just mixing up the order in which we do them. One more stitch. It's a knit stitch, and there we go. Row 3. One more row to finish the 4-row repeat. So now our yarn is falling in the front, so we don't have to worry about that. We're going to do another purl, knit, purl, knit. So in from the back to the front, wrap, pull that loop up and off, and then a knit stitch and purl. So rows 3 and 4 are always starting with the purl and going purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1. One more stitch And there's rows 1, 2, 3, and 4. So, a little note with this pattern, because it is sometimes hard to tell what row you're on. However you like to keep track of what row you're on in projects, do that. Whether it's putting a stitch marker at the end of the repeat, so when I start this next row, I would add a stitch marker in on the stitch so I knew, okay, that is the 4th row. Anything above it is starting the repeat. You can also write it down, do little check marks, row 1, 2, 3, 4, row 1, 2, 3, 4. I am going to work a total of 20 rows, so that would be 5 repeats to get more of a square shape. Like I said, this is about 4.5 inches long and 4.5 inches tall. So I'm going to be working 20 rows total, 5 repeats. I have worked 20 rows in total, and you can see how nice that pattern is once you get a bunch of rows done. Here's my green one. I'm planning on making a whole bunch of different colors and just using them as coasters outside. Once you have the length that you want, we're going to flip our needle and our work, and we're going to cast off. To cast off on this project, I am going to slip stitch because I want it to be loose. So slip stitch knitwise. I am then going to take my working yarn and pull it forward and slip stitch the next one purlwise. Going to work my yarn to the back. Taking your left-handed needle, you want to get under that first loop on your needle and pull it over that other needle, the other loop, like that. Going to move my yarn to the front, slip stitch knitwise, move the yarn to the back, and slip that first loop there up and over. So you're always just going to work, continuously working, moving the working yarn front and back, front and back. And because we are slip stitching, we're not actually working with this yarn, but we want to carry it all the way across. Move that to the front and pull that up and over. Sometimes you have to slide the loops back on your needle. So just continue doing this all the way across. Once you are all the way across, you'll have this one loop and your working yarn which you have carried. So I'm going to turn that. I'm going to cut my yarn, leaving a fairly long tail. I'm going to thread my end onto a yarn needle, carefully moving my needle, that loop, to the end of my needle, and you just want to pick up that loop like this, and now you can sort of weave in your ends. So I'm just going to put that up through there, and that way I won't lose that stitch. And now you can go ahead and work this tail in on either side. You don't want to pull too tight, or you will definitely cinch up your work. And I like to just kind of stretch it out a little bit. Now these are not blocked, so this one is not blocked. You can see how I could probably stretch out my cast on and cast off rows to make it a little bit more uniform, but really it lies flat, it doesn't curl up, and it looks like a square. So same with this one. Once you kind of work through it like this, it will pop into shape, but you can also block if you'd like. I have taken care of my ends on these, and now I have 2 matching coasters. Now I did not put a border on these. I'm going to show you this one. This is bigger. So I started with 20 stitches on this one, and you can tell it is quite a bit bigger, even just using those 4 extra stitches. It looks almost more like a washcloth. If you wanted to add a border like I did on this one, this is just a single crochet border. I put 3 single crochets into each corner and just worked a single crochet into every stitch all the way around, and it kind of gives a finishing look. So it's just personal preference if you'd like to add that little finishing border or keep it a little more rough around the edges. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Until next time, everyone, have a wonderful day and happy knitting. Bye!